The season 45 Survivor winner will be crowned tonight during the 3-hour-long finale. But before we get to that, we've got to catch you up on what happened last week and last week's episode. All right, so here's the thing. First of all, it's very awkward back at camp.
Very.
Tell people why.
Well, in the episode before, we see that everybody's trying to get Julie out. Julie knows because Dee had to tell Julie. And of course, for some reason, Austin didn't get the idol back from Julie, so Julie's saved, which ended up, everybody voted for Julie except Julie, obviously. Yeah. So Julie's just like, I know you're all out to get me.
She feels very on the outs, which, like, understandably so, right? So then we move into this episode's reward challenge, which was very, very exciting because there was a lot of moving parts to this. They start in the water and they eventually move on to land, but tell people kind of how this challenge worked.
Yeah, so they started out on that little like floating board. They had to swim to the shore, and then they had to balance on these barrels as they collected.
That would be so hard.
They had to collect 3 keys to get to the other side, and if they fell off, they had to go back. But then once they made it through, they had this sliding puzzle to figure out.
Yeah.
I would do horrible.
Yeah, I would do horrible the whole thing.
Sliding puzzles are so confusing sometimes. But luckily, our boy Austin ended up winning that one.
He ended up winning, yes, which was so exciting. Now, the cool thing was, this was a very big reward. So they go to this place called The Sanctuary typically, but this episode, Jeff surprised them, and it was kind of like bigger stakes, if you will. So they went on a helicopter and then a picnic on a, what did they call it?
I can't remember what he called it. It was like a sandbar out in the water.
Yeah, basically out in the middle of the water, which was really neat. And of course, he picks Dee because they're kind of like romantically connecting on this season, and also picks Katurah, which was very smart strategy-wise.
And poor Katurah, though, she was third wheeling, and she knew it.
She was third wheeling, but Katurah handled it well. But what's funny, though, is decisions like this are always interesting, especially towards the end, so close to the finale, because you have to think about what the 3 people that were not picked are going to feel. And one of them was Drew, who's been working with Austin the whole time. He is like infuriated. He's like, why did you not pick me? Why? Like, we have been buddies the whole time.
And he knew Austin didn't pick him so he could babysit Julie.
Which also made him mad because he doesn't like Julie. He's like completely over her at this point. The funny thing, though, is Jake takes it upon himself to make this an opportune time to get something done and ends up finding the idol, which is exciting for him, but a little bit interesting because this, if he doesn't get voted out at the end of this episode, this essentially ensures that he will make it to the final 4, which is very smart on his part considering he's probably at the low of the totem pole here.
Yeah.
All right, so then we move into the immunity challenge. This was also very exciting. It was another kind of one of these balancing challenges, if you will, where you have to put your foot on this, I don't even know, contraption. It
was like a seesaw, except the end had a ball that you couldn't let the ball fall off. It had a little bit of a rim, but you know, if your foot moved at all, that ball was hardcore shaking.
It was gone. What was exciting about this, though, we've been talking about Dee and Austin a lot, but they really kind of are the moment right now in Survivor. So they end up being the last 2 involved in this challenge.
And they were kind of flirting.
Very much so flirty, and Dee was giving Austin a very hard time, saying like, oh, you're gonna lose, you're not gonna figure it out. Well, Dee ends up winning, which is exciting. And here's the thing, okay? According to Twitter, Dee is a lot of people's winner's pick, so I'm interested to see how she pans out in this finale.
She's a good pick. She's very strong player.
Yeah, absolutely. So then we head into Tribal Council, but here's what's interesting about this. So the plan now, in between the Immunity Challenge and Tribal Council, is to get Drew out, but the only person that doesn't know is obviously Drew and Austin. What's so critical about this, though, is that last week when Austin knew they were going to blindside Julie, he tells Dee. Dee knows they're going to blindside Drew. She decides to not tell Austin.
And she debated it, too, because of him telling her.
Yes.
But for the game, she thinks it's not.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So we end up at Tribal Council. It's kind of interesting to see what's going to play out. Does Austin know? Does he not know? Are they actually going to blindside Drew? Well, they do end up blindsiding Drew, and Drew ends up going home. And here's what's funny. Drew was actually very mad. You could tell he was not pleased with that.
He was fuming.
But what was also interesting, and editing is one thing, obviously, but you could feel the tension, in my opinion, as the viewer between Dee and Austin. And I'm very curious to see if that impacts the final 5 or impacts kind of their placement, I guess, at the end of it all because of this.
Probably feels on the outs now going into this.
Yeah.
And he probably feels very betrayed by Dee.
I know, and that's what I'm wondering. And so I'm interested to see how she comes back from this because I think it will be very interesting. All right. One last thing. Who's your final winner pick? I feel like I know what you're going to say.
I've stuck with him all season. I'm sticking with Austin.
I'm going to stick with Austin as well, but I will say I think Dee or Jake both have a good chance, so mark that down. All right, well, the Survivor finale is tonight right here on CBS, or you can stream it on Paramount Plus and Ozarks Live. We'll be right back.